Imagine living in a world where whispering the king's name could get your entire family executed, or where a single wrong glance could mean a gruesome public punishment. Sounds like a horror movie? Nope, this was real life. These rulers didn't just make laws, they created nightmares that haunted their people for centuries. Today, we're uncovering 10 of the most terrifying, bone-chilling rules ever passed by kings. Stay till the end, because number 1, it's the most horrifying order in history. Number 10. The king who banned his name. Pharaoh Akhenaten of Egypt was so obsessed with power, he did something unimaginable. He outlawed the mention of his own name. People were forbidden to speak it, write it, or even think about it. If someone was caught whispering his name, immediate execution. And it worked. After he died, his entire existence was nearly erased from history because everyone was too afraid to remember him. Number 9. The emperor who fed people to ants. Roman Emperor Domitian was one of the most sadistic rulers in history. He didn't just execute people, he made it a nightmare. His worst punishment? Feeding criminals to giant flesh-eating ants. These ants, imported from Africa, would slowly eat the victim alive over hours or even days, and the worst part? He made sure it was done in public, as a warning. Number 8. The king who killed servants for fun. Ivan the Terrible of Russia didn't just rule with fear, he enjoyed it. He had a personal torture chamber where he would order random executions just to see people suffer. His favorite game? Dressing in disguise, sneaking into villages and punishing anyone who didn't recognize him as king? People lived in constant terror, knowing one wrong move could mean unspeakable torture. Number 7. The Sultan who turned people into lamps. Sultan Ibrahim I of the Ottoman Empire had one of the most twisted forms of execution. He would cover his enemies in oil and set them on fire as human torches. These poor souls would be hung from palace walls, burning slowly as living lanterns. Imagine walking through the city and seeing the streets lit by screaming, burning bodies. That's how terrifying his rule was. Number 6. The king who outlawed smiling. King Vlad the Impaler, the real-life Dracula, believed that happiness made people weak, so he banned smiling in public. If you were caught laughing or even smirking, you could be arrested and tortured. And his favorite execution method, impaling his victims on giant wooden stakes, and leaving their bodies on display. That's why his enemies called him the son of the devil. Number 5. The emperor who killed anyone taller than him. Emperor Qin Shi Huang of China hated feeling inferior, so he passed a law: anyone taller than him must die. Soldiers would measure citizens. If you were even an inch taller than the emperor, your life was over. Historians believe thousands of healthy, strong men were executed, just to protect his fragile ego. Number 4. The king who boiled people alive. Henry VIII of England wasn't just known for beheading his wives, he created one of the most brutal laws ever. He passed a decree that criminals must be boiled alive. Victims were slowly lowered into a cauldron of boiling water or oil, and sometimes, it took hours for them to die. And yes, he forced people to watch, because he believed terror was the best way to control his kingdom. Number 3. The pharaoh who buried servants alive. Pharaoh Djoser of Egypt wanted to be served even in the afterlife. So when he died, he ordered hundreds of his servants to be buried alive in his tomb. They were sealed inside with no escape, left to die in darkness, trapped forever. For centuries people lived in fear, because if the pharaoh died, they might be next. Number 2. The emperor who forced people to eat their own flesh. Emperor Nero of Rome was one of the most depraved rulers in history. He didn't just kill his enemies, he humiliated them first. One of his worst punishments? He forced people to eat their own flesh while still alive. If someone betrayed him, they'd be tied up, tortured, and forced to take bites of their own body before being executed. This was a ruler who turned death into a nightmare. Number 1. The king who made families kill each other, and now, for the most horrifying law ever created. King Ashoka of India was once a ruthless conqueror. He created the worst punishment in history. Criminals were taken to the hell chambers, a torture palace so brutal it made grown men weep just hearing about it. But the worst part? He forced family members to kill each other. If you were sentenced to death, the executioners wouldn't kill you. Instead, they'd bring in your wife, son, or brother, and force them to do it. It was pure psychological horror. And even after his reign ended, stories of his hell chambers haunted people for generations. These weren't just kings, they were monsters in human form. Which of these laws do you think was the most terrifying? Would you survive under one of these rulers? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you love crazy, shocking history facts, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and get ready for more insane stories from history's darkest rulers.